China's Growing Presence in Africa by me, Salahuddin Abdul Hamid. Here's a little about me before we dive into the topic. My name is Salahuddin Abdul Hamid. I'm a political science major at Bloomsburg University with a minor in Chinese studies. I have an interest in international relations, and I intend to go to law school. Let's start with our first question. How is China growing its influence in Africa? There are far too many routes we could take this question, so we'll specifically talk about economic and military influence today. Over the past 2 decades, China has steadily worked its way to becoming Africa's biggest trading partner. China reached its goal in 2009 when it surpassed the United States to become Africa's largest trading partner. In 2022, trade between China and Africa accounted for over 282 billion US dollars. Approximately 16% of Africa's total manufacturing imports come from China, and approximately 20% of Africa's exports go to China. China controls a massive amount of Africa's industries. According to the Center for Africa-China Studies at the University of Johannesburg in South Africa, 30% of African manufacturing, 25% of African services, and 20% of African's construction/real estate is under Chinese management. Loans. This is one of the biggest ways China has influenced Africa economically. Between 2000 and 2022, Chinese lenders supplied an estimated $170 billion in loans to borrowers in Africa. China has been accused by many countries of debt trapping African countries. According to povertyaction.org, a debt trap occurs when someone takes on a high interest rate loan and is barely able to pay back the interest, and thus perpetually finds themselves in debt. A great example is the Kenyan government. The Kenyan government has held back paychecks to thousands of civil service workers to save cash to pay foreign loans, many of those debts being to China. China's reluctance to forgive debt and its extreme secrecy has drawn criticism from various countries. China is seeking to expand its military presence in Africa. If you want your share of natural resources from a foreign land, you'll need a military force, just in case anything goes awry. China is far from the first country to get this idea. Today, the Chinese People's Liberation Army has its largest overseas deployment in Africa. There, the Chinese military conducts various drills alongside its African allies. The Chinese People's Liberation Army also has deployed its military to various African countries, a notable one being the Democratic Republic of Congo, to oversee peacekeeping operations. If all of these operations and activities sound familiar, you are not mistaken. The United States of America has done similar things. Speaking of similarities between the United States of America and China and their military foreign policy, here is a map showing the Chinese PLA support base in Djibouti and Camp Lemonnier. The Chinese and American bases are mere miles apart. China uses this base as an extension of its military might in Africa, just as America does. Looking towards the future, China shows no signs of slowing down and growing its influence in Africa. China continues to outcompete the United Kingdom and America in its growing exports and imports from Africa and to Africa. We will continue to see China's military influence grow as they send more troops from the PLA over.